This is Hope Starts With Us,
Yes.
a podcast by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I'm Dan Gillison, the CEO of NAMI, and I am so happy to be here with you, April. We're going to have you introduce yourself because we normally have a bio and that kind of thing, but we kind of grabbed you as you were walking in. We're at NAMICon 2024 here in Denver,
Yes.
Colorado, so this is real time.
Yes.
We have over 1,500 people here, so there may be a little background noise, but love for our audience to know who you are and why you're here, and then we'll get into just having a conversation.
Yes, I'm April Simpkins. By day, I'm a Chief Human Resources Officer for a national company. I'm also a very dedicated and passionate mental health advocate, and I am a NAMI Ambassador, one of my proudest titles.
Yes, yes. So thank you for being a NAMI Ambassador, and we will go over a few things in terms of this podcast that we call Hope Starts With Us.
Yes.
And 5 of those are really Hope Starts With Us talking about mental health. Hope starts with us making information accessible. Hope starts with us providing resources and practical advice. Hope starts with us sharing our stories. And hope starts with us breaking the stigma.
Yes.
Hope starts with all of us. It's a collective.
Absolutely.
And we really hope that with each episode, with each conversation, it brings people into that collective for them to know they're not alone.
Absolutely.
So we want to talk about a rock star. And we want to talk about, well, let's start out by talking about the book.
This has honestly been so well received, better than I could have ever imagined. My daughter in 2021 started writing a manuscript, and she finished it early January 2022. And she tragically succumbed to her battle with depression and died by suicide at the end of January. And her final wishes, one of her wishes was that I see to it that her manuscript be published. And it has been a 2-year journey of getting her manuscript out there. And the way it has been received has been beautiful, just as intended. The number of people who have reached out to me to say they found themselves in that book and they're seeking help, or they bought the book for their daughter so they could read it together, or they finally felt seen with their grief walk because I finished the book and talked about what life was like for those of us who are left behind, and the grief and finding purpose.
Yeah.
And I believe that's when I found my true purpose to be a mental health advocate. The book has now become a New York Times bestseller. We're so excited and appreciative for that. It's available in hard copy, in ebook, and audiobook.
This is fantastic. And the title of the book is?
By the time you read this, the space between Cheslie's smile and mental illness.
By the time you read this. By the time you read this. So as we talk about Cheslie and we talk about just her accomplishments, she was an athlete. Track star. She was a graduate of Wake Forest, if I remember, with her JD. And she was a columnist, or I don't even know if I'll get that correct, national columnist, syndicated columnist, and was also Miss And I'm going to give that to Mom to say. 'Cause I'm awfully proud of her.
Yes.
Because when this all begins and ends, I'm a dad. I'm a parent. So I think about us as parents. So I want to stop and have you tell us a little bit about Cheslie. And,
Just phenomenal. Just an incredible woman. She was a dedicated athlete. Her triple jump and long jump placed top 10 at her school, the University of South Carolina, where she graduated from the Honors College, cum laude. She got her Juris Doctor and her MBA simultaneously from Wake Forest.
That's right.
Only person in her class.
That's right. She did both the JD and the MBA.
At the same time.
That's right.
At the same time. And then went on to become a practicing attorney. She practiced complex civil litigation and then became Miss North Carolina USA and then Miss USA 2019. And after that, she became a correspondent for the entertainment show Extra. And at one point, she was all three. She was a practicing attorney, she was Miss USA, and she was a correspondent on Extra. And she talks about that in the book, those jobs and her roles. And, I've said this, I've talked about this book a lot, and so many people point to her incredible life. She was stunningly beautiful and just the kindest soul you'd ever meet.
Mhm.
But accomplishments do not erase mental illness.
Mm.
And if that were all it took, was to have this amazing life and be absolutely beautiful, I don't know that anyone would be battling this illness
Mhm.
who had stature and status and
Yes.
our view of success.
Yeah.
And so part of my mission as an advocate has really been not just to break the stigma,
Yes.
but honestly to pull back the curtains on this life that we assume is so beautiful when people live, and make room for them to take care of their mental health and to speak out loud
Yeah.
about their battle.
We really need to do it. And we're so appreciative of you as an advocate. And your advocacy began some time ago. And as we think about it, and, we think about books, but we always, we look at society and we say, okay, if we're talking about this space and if we care about someone, when we ask them how they're doing, let's not just look at the cover of the book. Let's pull back the table of contents and get into the chapters.
Absolutely.
How are you really doing, April? How are you really doing, Dan? Let's really ask someone how they're really doing. But as you pull the curtains back,
Yes.
what are you've been doing just a tremendous job of advocating and talking about mental illness, talking about stigma, and talking about all things in terms of mental health.
Absolutely.
What would you like our audience to hear from the standpoint of pulling the curtain back and understanding that we need to have these real conversations?
We absolutely do. And, when I look at this statistic that 1 in 5 adults will deal with a mental illness this year. Now look at that. And the number of people who are quick to say, I'm fine, when they're not fine. And maybe if we all begin to pull off the mask and be honest and authentic with where we are, we will find not only that the stigma will be reduced, hopefully eliminated, but we will realize we are not alone. So many of us are struggling and hiding and waiting for someone else to say how they're doing while we hide behind a mask of how we really are doing.
Yeah.
And I often say this, so many times parents will say to me, I think my child is struggling. What do I do? And of course, I point them to NAMI's website, which is just rich with information and ways to support your family. But I tell parents all the time, the best thing you can do for your child is to say the words out loud and talk about your own mental health. Put your phone down and say, I need to put my phone down now because this is bothering my mental health. Let me go get a book and read that. Or, I want to go for a walk. That always helps my mental health because these are seeds we are planting in the minds of our children so that they can begin to develop tools to help them when they're not feeling okay, when they're staring at that phone too long and don't understand what's going on. They will have that automatic recall. My mom said she puts her phone down because it bothers her mental health. Maybe I need to do that. We need to really emulate what we want our children to mirror. So do that. If you need to go lay down for a little bit because it's not a good moment for you, say it out loud too.
Say it out loud. Model that, emulate and model it, because then they will have that as a reference point.
Yeah,
that is incredible. It seems so simple, but it's so real because our young people have become detached because of devices and there's not that modeling
absolutely
necessarily.
And as parents, we talk at them. We tell them, tell me if you're not okay. But then we don't do that ourselves. And so if we are comfortable saying the words out loud, they will become comfortable saying those words out loud.
You just said something incredibly powerful. We talk at them. I'm stretching out this podcast because I don't get this much time with April Simpkins. Coach, how do we help the parents that are listening kind of pivot and go from talking at them? In other words, there may be a parent listening or watching that says they're not getting that piece of talking to them versus at them.
Yes.
Can you help our parents that
Absolutely. You have to learn how to listen.
Mm.
And I say this even for people who are trying to comfort me. There are times when I'm not okay, when I'm sad, and they will immediately assume that I must be in a place of grieving Cheslie. And I have 5 living children. I have a son who is 15, and it is breaking me inside watching him go from being my little boy to being a young man. He's taller than me, his voice has changed. And it hurts my mom heart to know that I am that close to being an empty nester, something I've never been in my entire adult life. And it hurts me.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of someone clearing space to listen to me, April, you don't seem yourself, what's going on? And listening so that I can tell you where I am. But instead, people will talk at me. They'll say, well, you're not okay. Cheslie still loves you. It's okay to grieve. And that's not where I am, but you didn't listen. And we have to do that as parents. You know, I say this when it comes to Cheslie. There were many times when she was younger, as a mom, that I want her to be okay. And she loves me. And so she wants to tell me she's okay, even when she's not. And that is when I had to transition from trying to be a savior and wanting to make everything okay and bear the burdens for her to being a supporter and clearing space for her to say, I'm not okay right now. And listening to her and being there with her in that moment without trying to fix her, without trying to bring her to this place of happiness, of being okay. It was a strong lesson to learn as a parent and as a supporter. And I think we tend to do that to our children. We talk at them because we want them to be okay, but we don't clear room for them to say, I'm not okay.
Almost creating a judgment-free zone where almost a zone of safety.
Yes.
Where it's okay for me to tell you.
Yes, absolutely. And I think too, and I say this often.
Yes.
I think in general, we have to educate people on the difference between my mental health may be compromised if I do this and someone with a mental illness. And when we say do things to take care of your mental health,
Yes.
it's the same as doing things to take care of your physical health. If I have a twisted ankle, I'm going to nurture it and baby it. I might ask people what they recommend, but it doesn't mean that I am without use of my legs.
Yes.
It just means there's a part that isn't okay, and I need to remedy that. And the same thing with our mental health. And one of the reasons why there exists such a stigma is because when we talk about mental health, people take this giant leap to mental illness and then want to try and back it up. So if your child says, this is bothering me, and it's their mental health, accept it right there that their mental health is being compromised, and that will help you listen better and support them better. But if you try to take this giant leap into that must mean there's a mental illness, they will shut down, you will shut down. So take them one step at a time. Something is bothering them and it's impacting their mental health. Talk to them from that place.
That is so good. I want to pivot and ask you about, you've probably heard so many people talk about your strength, and you're probably fatigued by it because there's so many people amazed at how strong you've been, and I think it goes back to you saying, well, they're not listening. They're not hearing me. But there's also some real authenticity with your strength, with actually sharing your story. How do you manage those that are cosmetic and those that are real? And so I want to ask you those two questions. And then I want to say, what do you do for your self-care?
Oh, strength is a funny word.
It is.
And I am told that often. That I'm strong. And sometimes it's because that's who I am. And sometimes it's because I don't have another option. I have 6 children, 6 amazing children, 5 of whom are still here with me and need their mom. And so I have to continue to move forward and show up for them because they deserve a mom and not me in a state of regression and only holding on to Cheslie. So I've learned to live and carry Cheslie with me, but still be mom to my 5 children. And that does take strength, but it also takes realness. I have no problem with telling my children, I'm not okay today. They live with me. They see me day in and day out. They know my rough moments, and I don't hide it from them. But I always let them know what I'm doing to help me in that moment. I use my 1 to 5 scale.
Okay.
And so 5 is a great. 5 is I'm wonderful.
Okay.
And I tell people when I'm feeling a 5 and I'm really feeling great, I will text 3 friends and tell them how grateful I am for now. When I'm feeling a 1, which is a very low place, people who know me in that place know to call one person, and that's David, my husband, and he knows what courses of action to take. He has my counselor on his speed dial. He has my best friend on speed dial. He knows that I need to be left alone for a few minutes so that I can kind of process. Don't ask me what's going on. Just give me a moment. But I've done that in advance, much like we get our pre-flight instructions. So he knows, and my children know, if I say, I'm not okay, guys, I'm feeling about a 1. My children know instinctively, get dad on the phone and just let dad know what's going on with mom. And he kind of takes it from there. If I'm feeling a 3, which is, I'm okay, I know to go journal. Like, just let me sit down and write what's going on in my head. So I have these prescribed things that I do based on how I'm feeling that help me tremendously. And so that is part of my self-care, to know where I am, to be honest with where I am and not hide it. And I know I have tools that I can use to help me no matter where I am. I live on the lake, which is beautiful. There's something beautiful and healing about water. And I have my favorite kayak, and I have no problem in the middle of the day with getting in my kayak. I might turn on a good audiobook and just go out on the water.
That's wonderful.
And that is just so peaceful and self-care for me right now. So
that's really good. You and I met a couple of years ago.
We did.
And at that time, as you were beginning this journey, you talked about your employer. You're a chief human resource officer, and I called it chief human relations.
Yes.
You have always been about human relations, and while we call it chief human resource officer, I always like to say human relations, and you've done that so great, so well. You also talked about your employer was so supportive. Would you share a little bit about that? Because you were proud to share that. I think we were on we were doing something else, and you were so proud of their support. And I just thought it was kind of cool. So,
Cheslie's passing was so sudden. One of the first things that I think after the trauma started to relax a little bit so that I could carry thoughts, because I've been asked several times about that day when I found out that she passed. And I share a little bit of it in the book. And I tell people, even to this day, and it's been over 2 years, it's not like a movie in my memory, in my mind. It literally is in these block snapshots. And I share with people all the time, the brain is a beautiful thing, and it will protect you if you need to be protected. And so when Cheslie passed, many people did not know that she was the special invited guest on our company-wide phone call that we have. So she was there on the Zoom, and 6 days before she passed, she was smiling and wishing happy birthday to a number of the people at our office. So when she passed, one of the calls I made was to one of my colleagues because I did not want everybody to hear it on the news because Cheslie was like family. And my colleague, who was our chief operating officer, said that he would let everyone know. And he said, you take all the time you need. We're fine. We're going to be fine. And it really didn't matter. That place could have been about to burn down. He didn't care. But you know what? Because they care about me enough to say, you have enough to deal with. Told me to take all the time that I needed. And I did. I was out for roughly 5 or 6 weeks. And then I remember I was on my way back into work. And that is really when the plan started. Our director of human resources was my point of contact. And we had made a plan that every email I sent out, she would be copied on. So if I just needed to step away, there was no interruption to the flow of business, which was important. In addition to that, I remember talking to her about me showing up. And I said, I know people have been praying for me. I know they wish me well. I'm in their thoughts. But it takes so much energy and effort for me to show up at a meeting. And I need to be there. Like my brain needs to focus on something. So please don't meet me with condolences. If you want to say anything, just say, we're happy you're here. And they did. She spoke to other boards that I belonged to. She was wonderful. And after that, our company rewrote our bereavement policy because there's a trauma and that comes along with losing someone.
Yes,
and
it
it really
does.
doesn't matter if this someone is older and you're preparing for their death or it's sudden, as it was in my case. And so we decided at that point that we would do a graduated kind of bereavement leave, that we would give people 3 weeks. And then, we kind of wean that down to 3 weeks at full pay. And then that would come in at about 50% of pay for another couple of weeks and down until you were ready to come
You
back.
transition back in.
Absolutely. And even with that, there was so much going on at work. And I realized later that summer that I wasn't ready to be back. And we had just gone through an acquisition, and now I'm talking to my new boss.
Yep.
Hoping that my position will still be there. But I told him I need time.
Yes.
I need to step away. And so I did. I took 4 months away to process and deal with, legal stuff. And it was wonderful. There's still, I'm still blessed to have an employer that is so focused on our mental health as employees. As a matter of fact, for the month of May, Mental Health Awareness Month, our director of HR, who runs our mental health employee resource group, challenged everyone to take the pledge on the NAMI website.
Yes.
And
Fantastic.
so everyone from the CEO to the CFO to managers, leaders, and others were reminding everybody to go to the NAMI site and take the pledge.
This is incredible. Speaking of NAMI, you're a NAMI ambassador.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're also on a board of NAMI.
I am.
Yes, and talk about NAMI in terms of your work with NAMI, because we're so fortunate to have you with us, and you're with us in multiple roles.
Yes.
What does NAMI mean to you? And
I talk about NAMI nonstop. I talk about it in front of every audience I stand in front of, and I tell people, get involved at the local level. That is where your community is. That is where the resources are. That is where you can make an impact. And so I joined NAMI Piedmont Tri-County, which is in South Carolina. and have been on the board now for, I think, almost a year. And I love it. Every time I show up and hear the work we're doing, we're getting ready for the NAMI walk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to start putting my team together. I cannot wait. But they know anything they need me for, just say the word and I am there. NAMI partnered with myself and our local chamber and did a mental health event at the local college. Our NAMI chapter was the host,
Mm-hmm.
and I did a fireside chat and read a little bit from the book. And we had other organizations in our community that support mental health. It was phenomenal. And one of the things I love, again, about being involved with NAMI Piedmont Tri-County is that I'm there at the local level, boots on the ground,
Grassroots.
serving my community.
Yeah.
I love that.
That is fantastic. So as we wrap this up, we always end with this last question. And, you know, we call this podcast Hope Starts With Us. We know the world can be a very tough place and very hard to navigate. And sometimes people can feel hopeless. So we always end with the question, what gives you hope? What gives you hope, April?
There's so many things that gives me hope. The fact that we are now talking about mental health in spaces where it was mumbled under someone's breath before, like our workspaces, like in the halls of our government, in schools where our local NAMI chapter supports teens in our schools, gives me so much hope. Hope that eventually people will not mumble mental health under their breath, but will say it with their whole chest and know it's okay and that you are not alone. That gives me hope.
Wow, this has been just powerful time. And, you know, one of the things I also want to say is that you did this for us as you were just entering the hotel and checking in. It was so unscripted. But this was just fantastic. And we do say something to our audience at the very end. This has been Hope Starts With Us, a podcast by NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. If you are looking for mental health resources, as April said, you're not alone. To connect with the NAMI HelpLine and find local resources, visit NAMI.org/help. Text HelpLine to 62640 or dial 800-850-6264 or NAMI. Or if you are experiencing an immediate suicide, substance use, or mental health crisis, please call or text 988 to speak with the trained support specialist or visit 988lifeline.org. This has been NAMI's podcast with April Simpkins. My name is Dan Gillison. Thank you for listening and thank you for watching. Thank you, April.
Thank you.
Girl,
You are so
you-
amazing. Thank you so much.
April's the bomb. You're like family. You know this girl. You know. Oh, thank you. You could have said something about I gotta go. I can. But we just grabbed you.
Never.
As we're sharing this book with you, by the time you read this, The Space Between Cheslie's Smile and Mental Illness, I'm sitting with Cheslie's mom, April Simpkins. April, what would you like to share? And I am so, as a parent, I'm so excited to be sitting here with April and to show you the book.
Yes.
April, what would you like to say about the book?
I have to add this about this book. It is phenomenal the way Cheslie really opens up a window to what is going on with her thoughts. And I loved adding my piece, but I also want to add that you wrote an amazing afterword in this book that people are still quoting and screenshotting and sending to me. And I talk about resources a lot, and I can't thank you enough for providing just an exhaustive list of resources in so many different ways: websites, organizations, books, podcasts, however you receive information, NAMI has provided it. and allowed us to include it in this book. And I'm just thrilled for that partnership.
Well, we're so pleased to be in partnership with you, and thank you. Thank you for providing this to us, and we're looking forward to our members learning more about this.
Yes.
This book and the story behind the book.
Yes.
In the next couple of days.
I love it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.